Good morning or good afternoon, depends on the moment that you're watching me. Thank you for listening to me, and thank you to the organizers of the Congress for the opportunity to participate in it. Today, I'm going to talk about something to which I dedicate part of my research interest and my teaching interest. It is English for specific purposes. Um, Specifically, today we're going to talk about a project-based learning classroom, a curricular design proposal for vocational education here in Spain. Our society is in a situation of continuous change. Changes must be considered so citizens can adapt to new situations that the future hold. According to recent research, the speed of current developments is in unprecedented stage in our history, and it is disrupting almost every industry in every country. One area that certainly needs to evolve along with our society is education, for obvious reasons. Society must create and educate people to be competent citizens. This requires the active involvement of teachers and educators at all different learning levels, teaching levels, and teaching moments, renewing the knowledge on methodologies and content. Teachers have Hence, in this perspective, in the light of what I said before, teachers have a responsibility towards their students. They need to provide a pedagogical model that meet their needs. Teachers need to know, teachers need to be aware of what is new in the field and try to find out new ways of teaching it. To understand what active methodologies are, in my opinion, it is essential to understand the term from which it derives, which is the one active learning. This phenomenon occurs when the teacher takes on a guiding role and the learner has a more dynamic and more energetic role in their education. Um, Recent research, but not so recent research, define active learning and active methodologies as a method that involve the student in their learning process, making the students aware of that learning process itself. According to the regulation, which is the Spanish Code of Ethics, teachers must consider the principles that will mark their education performance. In this case, the most relevant is the critical spirit and the principle of lifelong learning. The first aims to educate students as autonomous, mature citizens with their own criteria. The second focuses on teachers adapting to the constant change of society that I mentioned in the previous slide, but also to the constant change of people and institutions. These two principles push teachers to be informed about new studies on techniques, new methodologies, and new tools that they can implement and they can use in their classrooms to improve their educational action. Research, hence, plays an important role as it updates data and brings new information to the educational community. By sharing this information, teachers will have more options to innovate. Consequently, the main objective of this presentation, there is later going to be a paper, is to explore whether project-based learning, from now on is going to be referred as PBL, is a good practice for young vocational students. To this end, a proposal based on this methodology has been lodged and put forward. The problem to be addressed here is the lack of motivation and involvement of vocational students in the subject of English in vocational training. I'd like to offer a very brief overview of project-based learning because project-based learning is particularly interesting as it is considered to be a pioneer of active methodologies. The benefits have been listed. According to recent and not so recent research, PBL helps learners develop skills and competencies. For example, decision making, time management, problem solving, collaboration, or project organization. But also because there is an effective link between learning in school and learning real problems. Students are prevented from memorizing disconnected facts. It also helps the development of social and collaborative skills to construct and build their own knowledge, as it increases the self-esteem and individual strength, which is key for the proposal being outlined here. The benefits can be of great help in solving the problem at hand. The problem described, as I said in a couple of times, is that the motivation of vocational students in the subject of English. It should be borne in mind that the purpose of the subject is not to teach English, but to teach English applied to the context of the course selected by the students, that is, English for specific purposes. For example, if we teach the higher level of administration and finance, the contents taught are related to that particular field. According to the Secretary of Education, the new curriculum proposed by the law focuses on the acquisition of competencies and achieving deeper learning, leaving aside memoristic learning approach that is still predominates today, which is in total correspondence to the benefits listed by research that I proposed in the previous slide. I'd like also to offer a very brief literature review. It is not the main objective here to propose a literature review on PBL, which is extensive and quite comprehensive. But I'd like to talk about PBL and its connection with motivation, being motivation the main problem addressed by my class proposal and my curricular design. Motivation should be considered the main objective of the education system. Maslow states that human motivation is based on the search for fulfillment through personal growth. To achieve that goal, it is necessary to understand the motivational process of students when they are involved in school tasks and activities. This process considers three indispensable elements: the student's motivation towards school, the motivational differences according to the different school stages, and their different motivation and academic performance. There are not many studies on the level of motivation students in vocational training. However, Mendez Santos in 2020 reports in his work the results of a group of studies that focus the work on measuring the level of motivation with learning a foreign language. His conclusions are clear. The motivation in foreign language learning in formal education contexts is an undeniable reality. The incorporation of methodologies such as PBL is of great benefit, as it understands the learning process as a constructive and not merely receptive process. Project-based learning is considered the forerunner of active methodologies. Together with other approaches such as problem-based learning, it forms part of the history of methodologies based on experiential, meaningful learning. Like all approaches that are based on experiential learning, the teacher here in PBL is limited to being a guide who leads them through the learning process. PBL is ideal for students to be active learners because it helps them to relate learning to the real world. It also makes them responsible for their own learning. To encourage learners to develop knowledge and effective problem-solving skills, teachers need to embed learning in context where it is central. Several studies report this. Classroom-based research also supports this. Discussing problems in a PBL group before starting the inquiry process on PBL design activates relevant prior knowledge and facilitates the learning of new information, as suggested by recent and not so recent research. Students are in better capacities, are more able to construct new knowledge when they can relate it to what they already know. Although PBL is a very attractive methodology, there are several difficulties in its application. On the one hand, students may feel a certain reluctance towards the demand for effort, not only because of the time involved, but also because of the increased responsibility and the autonomous work, especially in the case of students who do not have a tendency to do autonomous work, as suggested by Martinez and Martinez. To address this point, it is considered essential to provide support to cover all the needs of students. Students have a lower level will be provided with more support and more follow-up, as you could see in the proposal that I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. To do this, all learners will mean that the methodology would lose its effectiveness, but up to a point means that we are attending the diversity in the class. Teachers have two difficulties compared to other approaches in PBL. One disadvantage is that including PBL in the course planning involves more effort and therefore more time planning than investing in the design. This can lead to teacher demotivation and a lack of quality in the service provided. as supported by some research. However, the second difficulty, more realistic in my point of view, is that some authors point out that PBL is not a simple approach, and its use entails problems that require teachers to have specific training in PBL. For example, some teachers lack pedagogical knowledge on PBL. As a result of that lack of knowledge, their actions are often intuitive and do not follow basic principles and good teaching practices. This is often the reason why, in certain cases, the methodology fails, as pointed out by Martinez and Martinez. Several authors explain the difficulties. For example, according to Hammond, to be successful, teachers must provide good scaffolding, and this requires good specific skills. More recent research looks at PBL methodology as a source of scientific insight. For instance, Fernandez Rivas and Said Sanchez conducted a study comparing two university groups taking the same subject in two different degree courses. The experimental group could use PBL as a methodology, and this group obtained better results in motivation and performance. Another significant research advancement is the study conducted by Montañez Villalba on written production competence through blocking in PBL environment, which showed that students not only improved their written production and reading comprehension skills, but also their motivation and willingness to learn English. Significantly, in the same light, Toledo Morales and Sanchez Garcia carried out a study with 107 university students, where they drew two conclusions regarding the use of PBL. It positively affects the knowledge of fundamental contents and the development of skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, and collaborative work. On the other hand, it increases the commitment to motivation of students. Quite similarly, in the study of 2020 by Botella Nicolás and Ramos, it stated that PBL improved group relations and autonomy and created context suitable for intrinsic motivation. Given the success of those studies that I mentioned, it is interesting to transfer the same good practices to another field such as English language learning for vocational training for specific purposes. Now I'd like to move on to the didactic approach, precisely to the curricular design proposal for vocational education, a PBL class. The objective of this project can be directly related to those established in the curriculum in the Royal Decree 92/2012, 30th August by the Governing Council, which states for the Community of Madrid the syllabus for the higher level training cycle corresponding to the higher degree technician in administration and finance. That is the destination, the destination population, sorry, to which I'm going to dedicate my proposal. Particularly, the main objective, which consists of elaborating a presentation speech with the most relevant features of the idea, is related to the following elements, including, as I said, in the curriculum, in the section on oral production. You have the full quote. The other two main objectives, knowing the essential elements for setting up a company and researching a topic and justifying the choices of the topic chosen for the particular project with data and facts, are related to the section of the curriculum on interpreting both oral and written information. And I also leave you with a full quote. With the introduction of the new law, of the loan law, the key competencies have been modified, and one more has been added, and the name has been a bit changed and altered. However, according to the Royal Decree 157/2022 from 2022, the competencies are defined as follows: competence in linguistic communication, from now on CCO, involves interacting in oral, written, signed, or multimodal from coherently and appropriately in different spheres and contexts and for different communicative process. This is going to be essential for the development of the curricular design. How did I approach the class design based on the new curriculum derived from the loan law and with my population of vocational training students? Well, this project-based learning approach consists of 7 sessions. Each session lasts 50 minutes, the regular time for a regular class. The target group, as I said before, are the students of the Administration and Finance course. This proposal aims to provide a solution to the lack of participation and demotivation through PBL in an innovative way. All the sessions are designed so that the students can carry out a final project. In the session, students will be provided with the necessary tools to carry out this project in a presentation format. In this presentation, students will have to present a fixtures company created by themselves with a slogan, logo, and correctly justify their choices. The work will be carried in groups of 2 or 3. This decision has been taken into consideration the account of suggestions of students in previous teaching practices of myself, but also in intuitions I have, as they usually argue that they feel more confident and more supported when presenting their own PBL results with a partner. It is also a way of working cooperation and group work, as well as giving them the possibility to learn from each other. Here, I leave you with a table in which we can actually see the distribution of sessions for PBL classroom proposal. We can actually say that it covers from session 1 to session 7, from the pre-test and topic introduction to the final presentation. It also covers content skills and use, from reading, listening, and speaking in class number 1 to listening, speaking, and writing, and also speaking and listening in the 2 last classes. The main methodology, obviously, is PBL as described before. It is based on the communicative approach, trying to avoid the traditional methodology. This means that the student is the center of the teaching learning process and is involved in it as much as possible. Therefore, learning is active, as I said at the beginning. The role of the teacher is that of a guide, providing the necessary tools for the student to learn actively and checking that the objectives of the proposal are being met. In this proposal, we gave great importance to cooperative learning because, as previously mentioned, it is an element that helps students to work with greater motivation. The key competencies to be worked on during the good practice of PBL are linguistic, multilingual, citizen, digital, entrepreneurship, cultural awareness and expression, and personal, social, and learning to learn, everything in correspondence and in total aligned with the new law. Evaluation here is a very important part of the research process and the class proposal process and the curricular design process. Among many things, it has been stated by the Royal Decree that assessment needs to be continuous, formative, and integrative. It is important to clarify the difference between continuous and formative assessment. One uses the results obtained during the course in the context of learning for grading purposes, and the other explains any process of observation, assessment, and decision-making, which whose purpose is to optimize the teaching learning process that takes place from a humanizing perspective and not merely for grading purposes. Both perspectives have been taken into consideration in the design of the assessment in this proposal, as we can actually see in this rubric. This rubric covers all the descriptors and the possible points from excellent to failing, from speaking to visual aids, covering creativity, content, grammar, nonverbal communication, text structures, but also speaking and visual aids, as I said at the beginning. This class proposal I have only had the possibility to implement this class proposal on one occasion, so I do not have enough data to extract solid conclusions. That's why I decided to, and I inclined to propose a discussion of the preliminary results that I obtained by posing myself one question: why should I use PBL? I think we can draw a number of conclusions, even if preliminary, from the proposal presented in this video presentation. We can actually say that by the use of PBL, research and practice shows that it engages students in active learning. It helps them to focus on real-world problems, challenges, and projects which are meaningful to them, which, in my opinion, and also according to the curriculum and research, is essential in vocational formation and in English for specific purposes. PBL is also related with active learning. With PBL, students take an active role in their own learning and apply the skills and knowledge they have acquired in meaningful and relevant contexts and projects. PBL effectively helps develop critical thinking, it enhances collaboration, and it ensures authentic assessment because PBL provides an authentic and meaningful way to assess student learning rather than simply testing their own knowledge through exams or quizzes. PBL allows teachers to evaluate students' ability to apply their knowledge in real world contexts. Overall, I think we can conclude by saying that project-based learning develops critical thinking, collaboration skills, and provides meaningful way to assess their own learning. Thank you very much. As I said at the beginning, my name is Manuel. You can find my email in the first slide and also in my profile here in the Congress. I will be willing to thank you for listening to me. But also, if you have any questions or comments, happy to answer, happy to learn, happy to help you. Thank you very much.